So what does God's face represent exactly? Because a lot of people talk about the fact that no one has seen God, which is true. Nobody has seen God, but people have actually seen God at the same time, because God can take on a lot of different Christophanies. He can take a lot of forms. He can take a lot of incarnates, basically. And when he says no one has seen his face, what he's saying is that no one has seen his fullness. That's what he's saying. His face can be Jesus Christ, which people have seen. His face can also be him in his brightness, in his brilliance, which nobody can see, because everything is inside of him, basically, and he created all things. So it's not even possible to see his face. But when it comes to his face in the aspect of Jesus Christ, in the person of Jesus Christ, and in the essence of Jesus Christ, meaning that the essence of his importance, his relativity, his relevance rather, the relevance of him coming to earth, what he came to bring down, like John chapter 1 verse 14 says, grace and truth, basically. That is a part of seeing the face of God. When you see the face of God, you are basically enlightened. Whenever you receive enlightenment about God, that's interaction with the face of God. In the face of God is intimacy. In the face of God, which has intimacy, there's also light, which is truth, revelations of God. Basically, that's why John chapter 1 verse 14 says, the word became flesh and we beheld his glory. We saw that face. That's the essence. That's the actual face of Jesus Christ, which became what? Grace and truth. The aspect that he didn't show Moses. Moses asked him, shew me thy glory. Exodus 33 verse 18. But if you go down in that chapter, God told Moses that I will pass before you in the cliff of the rock, but I will cover your face. You will only see my back parts, and you will basically feel my hands. That's why Moses saw the mercy and the judgment of God. God's hands can be stretched forth for judgment. It can also be stretched forth for mercy. That's why Jabez said in 1 Chronicles chapter 4 verse 9 going down, that all that will do is bless me and enlarge my coast. He asked for God to bless him and enlarge his coast, and that God's hand will be with him and that it will guide him and not grieve him. So that means he understood that God's hand can guide you, and God's hand can also grieve you if you are guilty of judgment. So all over the scripture, in Psalm 110 verse 3 and 4, basically you read and understand that there's holiness with God. When you behold his glory in the womb of the womb, basically there's holiness, and then he can also make you a priest. And then verse 5 says he will strike kings, evil kings, in the day of his wrath. You strike things with your hand. So God's hand can be used for judgment. Exodus chapter 15 verse 6, I believe, Moses received the revelation of God's hand. Basically, his hand was stretched forth against Egypt, basically to divide the Red Sea. So his hand can be judgment and mercy, but his face is revelation. His face is insight. That's why Aaron the priest, he blessed the people in Numbers chapter 6 verse 22 going down to 26. He said, the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord cause his face to shine upon thee. So when his face shines, you see the revelation. That's why when Paul was on his way to Damascus, he saw the face of God. He couldn't even see the fullness because it was so bright. That's why Paul fell down, and God told Paul that I have called you, but why are you kicking against the pricks? It's hard for you to do that. And that's why from there, Paul became one of the most profound apostles. Peter did a lot of mighty things, but Paul was the one that could comprehend and could write down the things that he received. So the face of God represents enlightenment, basically, and it represents light in its essence, light in its brilliance. That's why Revelation chapter 1 verse 14, it says that his hair and his head were white and his eyes were like the face of fire, like fire, basically. So that fire is purifying fire, basically refining fire. But the aspect of his face as light, you can read about that in the book of 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 16. It says that he dwells in lights that cannot be approached. So that's where he dwells, that's where he can be found, but you can't get there because it's too bright. So his face represents ultimate brilliance, ultimate light, and definitely, like I said, it represents refining, and it represents purity, basically, because when you are refined, you are basically somebody that has been purged from iniquity, and then purity is your essence at that point in time. And whenever you interact with knowledge and wisdom with God, you are interacting with the face of God, because his face represents knowledge, light, and enlightenment, basically. Whenever you know more about God, you are interacting with the face of God, basically. And like Malachi chapter 3 verse 1 going down says that, behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. So that's John the Baptist. And then it goes on to say that, and the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant. That is Jesus Christ. So John the Baptist came as the messenger. Jesus Christ came as the messenger of the covenant. It says, whom ye delight in, he will come. And then it says, who shall be able to stand the day of his appearing? And who shall stand when he is there? Because he is a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap. He shall purify and refine silver and purge the sons of Levi so that they can give unto the Lord an offering of righteousness. So righteousness basically is an emphasis on purity. Purity is an aspect of intimacy with God. The more you get closer to God, because God is a holy God. So when you get closer, you are getting more relative to him, basically. And the more you get closer to a friend, you become more like that friend, basically. And the more you know someone, that's how you become more intimate with the person and you become closer. You can't go closer to somebody without learning more about them. So whenever you interact with knowledge about God, wisdom about God, and whenever you start to live righteously and you live a life of purity, you are interacting with the face of God. That's the essence of God's face. You don't actually have to see something physically or in your dreams. You can actually see visions and stuff, but those visions are only supposed to be motivational points in your time, in your life, in your dreams, basically motivational encounters that you can build upon, things that will cause you to push closer and get closer to God's essence. When you get closer to that light, then you become more like God. That's why in Psalm chapter 80 verse 1, it says that he that dwells in the midst of the cherubims shine forth, basically. So the cherubims are the ones that guard the glory of God. The glory of God represents the ultimate holiness of God. So God dwells there, and his face is where that place is also, because he shines. So his face is actually physically bright, and also its purity. Like I said, purity, fire, and light. So I hope this is something that can push you to learn more about God, to become more intimate with God, and to worship God in spirit and in truth, and basically live a life of truth and holiness. Because the more you interact with God, you will learn more about his ways. And he doesn't just want you to know him, he wants you to actually know him and become more like him. So that's what we're created to become, because we're created to become brethren. That's why Romans chapter 8 verse 29, it says, whom he did foreknow, he also predestinated to be conformed to the image of his son, so that he may be the firstborn among many brethren. We were all foreknew by God. We all are created to be like God, basically. He wants all of us to become like him. So we have to choose to be like him, more like him, basically. It's not like we can be him, but we have to be more like him, because that's what he desires. So he can call us friends, not just creations, basically. So that's what the face of God represents. It represents ultimate intimacy, purity, righteousness, truth, and physically bright brilliance, basically. So brilliance, intimacy, truth, righteousness, enlightenment, and light. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.